Okay, it looks like we're gonna have a pretty nice weekend, so I figured I'm gonna go ahead and do another video on the Trans Am, get a little more done. And in our last video I discovered that when you turn the AC on, it wants to stall the motor, so we're gonna need the idle stop to kick that up just a little bit. And I'm gonna use this idle stop wire that comes on when you turn the AC on, and I'm going to put two relays down here, one for a little 12-inch fan down in here, and I'm going to use the horn mounting holes, and I'll find some way to mount the horn somewhere else so it'll set right in the middle there and blow against the condenser. So this is what I got going on. I tried a little bit of experimenting how this is going to work, and I think it's going to. For the fan, I've got these tubes and a piece of flat bar, and I'm going to run two flat bar going this way and weld on some studs to hold to those holes where the horn would go, and that'll should mount that up pretty good. And on the idle stop, drilled out this piece of flat bar to hold it, and it's got this little nut and stuff to tighten it down. And this right here adjusts in and out so that you can adjust your idle stop. And I got this plate coming off of here with two holes, and this is going to set right up here, and I can tell that this carburetor is made for an idle stop. It has that little pad right there, so I think that's gonna set right there. I'm trying to avoid this hose, so I think I might be able to get away with being down a little bit lower, angle this up to where my other bracket's gonna be. So I'm gonna do a little more fabricating on that. First thing I got to do is these holes. I discovered that they're a size 12 screw, and go to any hardware store and ask for a size 12 screw and they're gonna tell you no, we ain't got that. So I found a way to remedy that, and I'm going to make it 1/4 I mean, hopefully I won't screw it up. I need to find one of my bottoming taps because there's not a whole lot of thread in there, but hopefully I can get that to take some threads, but we will see. Hopefully I don't screw it up. So here we go with that. Okay, I put some tape on my bottoming tap so I didn't go to the bottom and snap this dude off. And got some good threads in there. And so far so good. I took and angled this a little bit to get it down here, and I'm going to go ahead and mark that and put some tack welds on it and see how everything's going to line up. Okay, I've got my bracket tacked and I went to test it out, and nothing happens until I do that. So I'm thinking it needs some momentum before it needs to hit against it and kind of get it going a little bit before it lifts up. I even had the battery charger on there. I had 16 volts, and so I'm gonna back it off probably 1/4 of an inch, because even at that setting with no adjustment back, it's got it probably at about 2,500 RPM. So we definitely need to back it off, and that way we can adjust it out until it idles right with the compressor running. So I'm gonna try that and see how that works. Okay, after trying all different positions, I discovered that this is called an idle stop because that's all it does. I'm assuming that if you get in your car and the high idle choke is on, and you start it up, turn your AC on, this is out enough to where it can pop out and it will stay out. If the motor's already warm and you start up and turn the AC on, I guess you just have to tap the gas a little bit and then it'll pop out and stay out. But I've got it to where it's got maximum leverage, and I've got adjustment in and out, so I think I got it to where it's gonna work. And so I'm gonna go ahead and weld this up, cut off my excess here, kind of round off the corners and stuff, throw a little paint on it, and I guess that's just the way it works. So we're just gonna go with that. Okay, got my bracket all cleaned up and painted, and well, that's fine. I'm gonna start working on my fan brackets. Got a few more holes drilled in this one, got to cut it off to length, and gonna go ahead and start welding that up and see how it turns out. Okay, I'm gonna do a little welding on these. Got these little brackets made up. Got this one here in the vise, and gonna fire up the machine, and I need a little gas. Okay, and I even remembered to hook up the ground. So let's do a little welding. Okay, I'm gonna weld these up on the back side, and if I get a little weld down in there, ain't gonna hurt nothing, because using these little 1/4-inch bolts, so as you can see there's plenty of room around there. So we'll just fill that up, smooth it out a little bit, and I think we'll be good. Okay, I'm going to grind most of that other weld off on the other side, so I'm going to put a couple tacks here just so they, don't weld, fall off after I grind the weld down. So I'm going to do that. Stay there. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Got all my end brackets all bolted up. And I did a little measuring and bending, and I figured that my stud needs to go about right here, and looks like this is going to work. So now I got to get this one bent up to parallel this one, and then we'll clamp it, unbolt it, tack it, and weld it up, and see if we can fit it up in the car. Okay, I got both of my straps bent up, and I've got a vice grip on there. I'm going to go ahead and unbolt this and tack weld it. Okay, nothing worked too bad, so I got it bolted back down again, and we'll go ahead and repeat the process. Clamp it down, tack weld it, make sure it fits. Okay, I put the whole thing up in there, and I realized that if I have studs sticking out, it's not going to fit up in there. So what I'm going to do is drill a couple holes and weld nuts on the inside. Then I can throw some spacers in there and tighten them down. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, this is turning out really good. Everything seems to be fitting, and I've got it up in here. And I found these spacers from a bracket kit. They were leftover extras. and they're like perfect length, but it's still a little wobbly this way. So what I did was I drilled a hole right there, and if I put the nut on the inside, it will draw it crooked like that. I think a 5/16 nut welded on this side will hold it in like a triangular position, and it'll be really sturdy. And we've got enough clearance from our nuts, you know, I mean, that's, you know, about a 1/2 inch should be good. As long as nothing moves around, I think that'll be perfect. So I'm gonna unbolt it and drill out this hole a little bit bigger and get a short 5/16 and weld a nut on there, and I think we'll be good. Okay, we got our mounting bracket all done. Got that third threaded nut in there. So that's gonna hold it in like a triangular position. And I was reading the reviews on this fan. I had seen several comments where people had used these kind of zip tie things, and they were complaining that it vibrated more holes through the radiator. Well, they probably didn't use these rubber pads, but even then those don't last very long. So that's why I always like to make a bracket. So I'll let this dry and we'll get it all bolted up to the fan and put some power to it and see how it does. Okay, paint's dry on my bracket, so I'm going to go ahead and get this bolted up. Like line up my bolts here. And this time I'm going to use the nylock nuts so they don't vibrate off. So I'm going to get this bolted down, see if we can get it up in the car. Okay, I've got my fan mounted up in here and got the ground wire right here and the other power wire running out there. And now I can go ahead and start mounting up my relays and measuring how much wire I'm going to need, and get both of these relays wired up, one for the fan, one for the idle stop. So I'm going to go ahead and see if we can fit our drill up in here and kind of hide them back up under there, and I think it'll look a lot better kind of hidden up in there. So just going to see if this is going to work. Okay, if you've never wired up a relay before, you have a little diagram on some of them. 85 and 86 energize the electromagnet, and the other two wires is going to be your hot at all times. You can make it either or, 30 or 87, and this is 85 and 86, or I might have it backwards, but plug in your wire and you can see that it's the black and white. Now ground is usually black, so you can make that, you know, your ground. Now if you're working on a vehicle that somehow triggers the relay using ground, well, you can hook up to this. Either way, as long as you got positive and negative going through that winding, it's going to pass power from this wire to this wire or vice versa. It closes the circuit, so you got power going through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie both of these grounds together and ground them, and tie both of the white ones together, and the green wire coming from the AC controls will open the circuits or close the circuits on both relays. And I think I'll just use blue for my power at all times, battery power, and tie those together. And then one of the yellow wires can go to my fan, the other one will go to my idle stop. So that's basically how relays work. They're pretty simple. You just have to have done it a couple of times and it becomes very easy. So we're going to go ahead and get these wired up. Okay, I got my 3/8 terminal in, and I'm going to ground it to this bolt right here. And this is coming from my AC controls, and I'm going to wire it up to both white wires. And from there, then we can pick up a power source and run our wires to things we want to power up. Okay, I've got my what some people call a trigger wire wired up to both of these, and I spliced into my main power wire here, and we'll go ahead and solder these up to the two blue ones, so I have a source of hot at all times battery power, some people call it. So I'm gonna get that soldered on, and then we can run our wires out to whatever we're powering up. Okay, got my main power wire spliced in, and since I don't want my fan or my idle stop permanently wired into the wiring harness, I'm going to put these connectors in here. That way I can unplug them if I need to take it on or off or whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and get these soldered on and put an inline fuse on the fan, and we're getting closer to testing it out. Okay, had to turn my fan off so you all can hear me talk. This is what I got going on. All right, I got both my relays up in here mounted and grounded and power source, and I've got my fan plugged in with an inline fuse So that's ready to go. And I've got my idle stop wire coming off of here. It's supposed to be a light green wire, and I'm following my AC harness all the way around. I'll probably conjoin it in there because I can unplug it on this end and over here when I get this last connection hooked up. So this has a little spade connector on it, and I'm going to go ahead and hook this one up, put the little cover on it, and this little wiring project will be done. So I'm going to finish this up. Okay, final connection. I'll get this stripped back a little bit and see if we can get our spade connector on there. And I think we'll have an idle stop solenoid that hopefully works. Make sure that this is crimped down really good, even though I'm gonna solder it, and that way it won't be stalling all the time if this wire falls off. Of course, we don't want it grounding out. So, see if we can get a little dab of solder on here, and I think we'll be in business. Okay. That cooled down a little bit. We don't want our heat shrink to shrink before we want it to. Oh, she's still hot. Okay. Maybe now we're good. There we go. Alright. Find a little cover, and a little slot goes that way, snaps in, and we'll see it's gonna plug in over here. Which side do we want to be on? This side. Alright. Of course, I'm gonna loom it all up later on, but for now, I always like to leave my wires loose in case you come up with a problem. You ain't got it all wrapped up in electrical tape. So, I think now we can test it out. Okay, I think we're ready to test it out. Make sure both things work. We'll come in here, turn the ignition on. And we go to max AC. I don't think you can hear me talk. So there we go. And I think I hear the fan going out here. Yep. Fan's going good. And idle stop is working. Probably take a little adjustment, but it's working. So we'll see if it's going to hold an idle. Okay, idle stop's working, fan's working. I think it needs to be adjusted back down just a tad. It's kind of idling a little bit high, but it's working, and motor doesn't stall when you turn the AC on. So I think this is about where I'm going to end this video, and probably next time around I'm going to go ahead and put my heater box up in there, and for real this time put the dash in. That way I don't have all my instruments just kind of laying around like that. So we appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see y'all next time.